Okay, it's been a couple days since I got the Cobra back, and this is a topic I wanted to bring up ever since I decided to do the fuel system on the car. And that is, should you go with a full return fuel system, or can you just do pumps and injectors and basically call it good at that point? Neither way is right or wrong. In some situations, one makes more sense than the other. Ultimately, they're both really good choices, but I want to go into the differences between the two and why I went the way that I did with this car versus what I did with the last one. And in the end, it's ultimately up to your choice for what you want to do, but I just wanted to bring up the differences between the two and kind of how they both play out. On my first torch red Terminator that I had the Gen 3R, and I went with a full return fuel system. It was a 4 level 1 system. And it's a really, really good system. I will say that if you spring for any kind of return fuel system, it's definitely a real good choice to go with 4. Their quality is just really, really good. In fact, I have 4 components on this car now as well, but I'll get into that when I talk about the other fuel system. Now, one of the disadvantages of a full return system is the price. It is more of a cost up front, and if you're not installing it yourself, it does cost more to have a shop go through and install the entire system versus just doing pumps and injectors. Now, neither one of these setups that I'm going to talk about come 100% complete. You still need to buy injectors for both, which I did on my last one, and now I did on this one as well. So that's another added cost factor for either one of these you have to incorporate into it. Some of the plus sides to doing a full return fuel system is that you get rid of the fuel pressure rail regulator on the engine, which on these Terminators are very well known to blow at some point. And especially with adding extra fuel to the car, like with a pump system, like I did on this one, you're more apt to blow your fuel rail pressure sensor than you were before. Plus, they're just prone to going out anyway. So that's one of those things you have to really consider when going with a full return or just doing pumps. The other thing that you eliminate with a full return fuel system is you get rid of the fuel pump driver module, which isn't a bad unit at all, it's fine, but you replace it with the FC3 controller, and it's just a much more modern update way to control your fuel. So on my last Cobra, like I said, I had the 4 return level 1 system. I had 80-pound injectors, and that was pushing the power that I had with the VMP Gen 3R. That fuel system will support way beyond what I was pushing with that blower. One of the things that I would tend to steer away from if I was considering which setup to go with is if you're going to stay on 93 pump fuel or below, 91 or 93, and you don't plan on making more than 700 to the wheel, then doing a full return system, I'm not saying that you shouldn't do it. I'm just saying that you don't have to do it. You can save a little bit of money and go the route that I did with this car that I have now with my Sonic Blue Terminator. With this setup, I have 80-pound injectors. I have a 4 hat, and in that hat there are 2 Ford Supercar GT improved pumps, and that's supplying the power to what I'm making now at 660. Now, the car was tuned before with some crappier pumps that were possibly clogged with rust, or they just weren't keeping up, but either way, it's supporting the power that it makes now. So this pump setup is supporting the same power that I was making with the Gen 3R setup, because I'm staying on 93 pump gas and I'm not pushing beyond 700 to the wheel. So do I really need a full return system? It could be beneficial, but I don't have to have it. I did just 60-pound injectors, those fuel pumps with the hat, and it runs perfectly fine. It supports the fuel that it needs for the power output that the car is making. And this same setup with the 2.3 Whipple this whole setup that I have now has supported over 700, and I'm not going to make over 700 on pump 93 without the added benefit of Torco or Boosting or something like that, or E85, which I don't even have in my state, so I won't be running that. Now, one of the negatives with the fuel pump setup is that I have retained the fuel rail pressure sensor, so that means I have the potential for that to go bad, yes. But one thing you can do to help with that is to get a Kenny Bell fuel rail pressure disc. It's $20 and it's just a little teeny disc, and that sits inside top of the fuel rail where the pressure sensor goes onto it, and that will prevent any surge in pressure from the pumps causing them to blow at any point, or causing that sensor to blow. So I went and decided to do that to help stem that issue with the rail sensor going. Now, does that mean that that sensor will never go bad because I did that? No, it doesn't. They just go bad for whatever reason. They don't have to have a reason. They just go bad sometimes. So that is one disadvantage with the way I decided to go this time. But I didn't really feel as though I needed a full fuel system. Now, the other disadvantage to doing this is if you're going to run the pumps like I have now or something more than that, you're not going to be able to push it with your stock fuel pressure driver module. I have a black 306, and those are very, very hard to find now. I was lucky to be able to get the one that I was able to get through Cobra Dan, but there is a little light at the end of the tunnel because Dan actually, real quick story, Dan texted me this morning saying that the owner of the black 306, who was doing those units that he was making years ago, he's looking for fuel pressure driver modules, and I have 2 of them. So I'm going to send those out to him, or he's going to buy them from me. And he may be making the black 306s again, so that may not be a relic of the past where you're not able to get them anymore. Hopefully for those of you still looking to get one. So with that said, you need to either run a dual fuel pressure driver module setup in the back if you're going with a pump setup, or you need to run a black 306. That does come with extra wiring. How complicated that is, I'm not positive. I can't speak in terms of that. This makes so much more power than it did before. Holy crap. There might be a cop in front of me too. It's not. Okay, so what I was saying before, finding a way to get the either dual fuel pressure driver module set up wired in. They do make pigtails and everything for that. As far as I know, you can still get them. I haven't really looked into it, but that still is an option you can do, or you can try and find a black 306 through someone. And I'm going to stop in just a little bit. I'll show you guys the wiring for the black 306 that I have, what he did. It's just an extra loom that's wired in, but so you guys can get a better idea of what I'm talking about. The reason why I didn't go ahead and do this myself is because I was finding conflicting information on which wires to tap into to wire it into the stock system with the 4-hat, wiring it into the black 306. Cobra Dan does a custom wire harness for that. I was finding conflicting information online, even on SVTP, of which wires to tap into to get all this connected together, and that's not something I wanted to get into, where I was potentially going to tap the wrong wires and screw a bunch of crap up. So that's why I took it down to Dan and had him take care of all of that so I wouldn't have to deal with it. And I knew it would be done right. I had to stop and get gas. There's probably going to be a lot of really bright sunlight in this video because the way the sun is on the horizon this time of year. We're at the end of November, so there may be like really dark spots in the video and really blown out ones exposure wise, but apologize for that ahead of time if that's the case. back to what I was saying about the two different types of systems you can go with. The big advantage with the full return system is everything is right there. Other than having to source your injectors out, everything is in the box. You unbox everything, you either put it on or have someone put it on, and that's it, you're all done. You don't have to worry about sourcing other friggin' parts and everything else. So with the fuel pump setup, which I did this time, I had to either get another fuel pressure driver module to do a dual setup, or I was lucky enough to get the black 306. So you're looking for additional parts to make the whole thing work, and then there's extra stuff on top of that of getting everything all wired together so it all works cohesively. So there's that part of it too. So now that I've had both, is there one that I think is better than the other one, or which one would I ultimately like to have now that I've experienced two different Cobras, 0304 Cobras with two different fuel setups in them? If I'm staying on pump gas and I'm not pushing over 700, I don't think there's as much need for a full return system. I'm not saying that you shouldn't do it. You can still go ahead and do it, and it's perfectly fine. But I would just probably try to save a little bit of money. And the other thing too is if you decide that, okay, I want more than 700 now, I want to take off my 2.3 Whipple and put on a 2.9 and spin this thing to make 800 something horsepower. Now I'm screwed because I don't have the ability to do that with just a pump setup. If you go with the return setup, you have room to grow up top. With the just doing the pumps like I did now, I don't have that luxury. I'm stuck with what I've got now. But being that we don't have E85 up here, I'm extremely happy with the 2.3 Whipple. I have no reason to upgrade, so I really don't have anything down the road that would make me push my fuel needs higher than what they're currently at now. So I'm going to stop in a few minutes. I'll show you guys the setup in the trunk with, you know, how it really won't be to see much, but I just wanted to show you guys the wiring that was done into the fuel pump driver black 306 that I have now. So before I get to the trunk part, I wanted to show you guys the ride height, how it sits now. This is with H&R race springs with the isolators in it, and it's definitely higher up. I'll have to throw in a couple pictures here in the video of how it looked before with the sport springs and how it sits now with the race springs with the isolators in. I'll get it from the other side too, because the sun today is just, the way it hangs in the horizon this time of year, it's just really bad. So I like it a lot better. It's not up too high, and it's not so low that I'm really worried about scraping on stuff like I was before. This is the boiler exhaust system that was damaged. I say was because it's now fixed. So there'll be a video soon of the boiler singers going on and how the sound difference is with the Bassani. Now back here, it's a black 306 unit, and this is the wiring that Cobra Dan wired into the factory harness. This section up here, exactly what he tied into, I'm not completely sure, but this is all the factory system here except for the black 306, but it ties into the factory harness, and then that goes down into the top of the fuel hat where it's all wired into from there. I'll throw up a few other pictures too. Back here is all cleaned up. There was a lot of the boost wires and everything back here. It wasn't really neat when we put the Whipple on. It wasn't something I was really concerned about at the time, but Dan, you know, took the time to go through and clean all that up, so it's just really nice and neat back there now without the boost lines being exposed. And I still retain my fuel rail pressure sensor with the Kenny Bell disc in there, which should hopefully prevent any fuel pressure spikes blowing that sensor, which is common on these cars. But like I said earlier in the video, it's, you know, I haven't had any issues with it, but it's something to consider if you retain the fuel pump route, as far as what you decide to upgrade as far as that or the full return fuel system. I wish the weather would stay like this all year. It's so nice today for being late November, but I fear what's coming. Hopefully it's not a bad winter. But that will conclude this video. I just wanted to let you guys know that if you're going to blower swap your Terminator, you have options. You don't have to go full return system. You can save a little bit of money and just do the pumps and everything else. And if you're staying on just your Eden, whether it's ported or not, you don't need to do a full return fuel system. You can take care of your fueling needs just with injectors and bigger pumps, and that's all you really need to do. I know a lot of people will push others to really go towards a full return fuel system, and they're not wrong. It's not a bad option, but I'm just saying there are other options, and you can consider doing just pumps. I mean, I have a 2.3 Whipple pushing over 650, and I just have upgraded pumps and upgraded injectors, and it's enough. It's sufficient for what the car needs for fueling, and I didn't feel the need to go full return fuel system again. I learned a lot more about these cars since when I had my first one, and you don't always have to spend the big ticket items on these cars to get the same results, because you know, I'm getting the fueling needs as I am with this setup as I would with a full return fuel system. I just save, you know, a pretty good chunk of money and not going that way this time. So that will be it for the video. Like you guys saw in the trunk, exhaust system's fixed, and hopefully it seals up pretty well. I plan on putting that on soon, and I have a lot of stuff recorded for the comparison for the Borla versus the Bassani, and should make a pretty interesting video for the difference between the two. So expect that hopefully soon, as long as there's no hang-ups with getting the system put on and all that. But if you did enjoy the video, make sure to leave it a like, and above all else, thanks for watching.